Hello, this is the second teacher training video, and today we're going to concentrate on looking at the review and analysis report rubric. So as we look at our screen, we're going to go right here to review and analysis report 1. And when you start when your assignments are due and you want to start grading, this is how you will grade those assignments. So you're going to click on review and analysis report 1, and you'll see that this comes up. The report is there, and you'll go down to where you say view all grade submissions. Now these are reports that I have graded in the past this last semester, and I want to find a particular student. All right, so I will see that this student has submitted it for grading. Now we know it's graded, but I want to show you. You will go here and connect on the review and analysis so that you can read that report. I want to go over here to edit after you've read the report. Now you can choose as you read the report to download it and then write your comments directly on the paper, save it, and then drop it back into the feedback. That's fine, but you're also going to want to grade it on the rubric. So you're going to hit over here on edit, go to edit. I'm going to say update grade because I want to show you that rubric. Now, when you're looking at this rubric, it is important to remember that, again, students should have been engaged in that Mackay text for looking at how to write that literature review, and you should start seeing some of those techniques in these reports as well. So with this student, now remember this is the first report, so she struggled a bit, but I want to look at each one of the sections and comment with feedback so that she sees exactly where she made those mistakes. Remember that we can't scaffold student learning unless we tell them what they did well, but also where their mistakes were and how they can fix those mistakes. So under the first criteria here, it's introduction and conclusion. You'll see the definitions for each of the point categories, 8 to 10, 6 to 7, etc. I gave her a 1 on this. Now you'll see there are 10 possible points. There's no thesis here. You introduced your paper, but there's no topic or thesis. And then I tell her, refer to steps 1 and 2 in the Mackay text to strengthen this skill. I want her to know this is where you go to learn how to do that. Rather than just reading the paper and then giving students a point score, that doesn't tell them anything. That doesn't teach them. The rubric allows the students and you to engage in a learning experience where you're saying to them, this is how many points you got and this is why, and now this is how you can do better the next time. That's the purpose of using the grading this way, by going back into the rubric rather than just recording it on the gradebook page. The second criteria in the review and analysis section is worth 20 points. On this particular student, on her first try, got a 12. Now I will tell you that this particular student ended up being a very strong student. But she utilized the feedback that I gave her in order to do better the next time. The paper summarized the writer's review, but was not written to support any particular topic or thesis. Without a thesis, you provided just a summary of what you read, which is not the intent of the paper. And then you'll see at the end, I guided her as to how to summarize it. So in other words, what she did is merely reported what she read. But she didn't summarize it to dig down more deeply to say, you know what, this is what the authors are really saying. And this is what they're proposing. And this is how all the authors came together. This is what I found as after I analyzed it. And what was missing here was her comment on how the authors supported the thesis. in a very clear manner, so that she reported all the authors came together after I read them, and this is what I found. This is what I discovered. It's that discovery argument section that they're going to be reading about. So it's important then to give that feedback in that section. Stating a position then is the next one. She had a 9 out of a 15 because, as I look through here, she did not clearly state a position. It wasn't connected to the review and analysis finding. You can read, and then when you report in that first section on the review and analysis, after you've reported that and after you have analyzed it, then how is it that you derive your own position? And it better be, your position needs to be related to what it was that you discovered in the previous section. So I said, no real position. You didn't take a stand or present to the reader your own position and then support it with the writer's opinions and statements. Then the reflection section needs to say, okay, this is what I learned from doing this exercise. This is how the issue affects me in my current position, in my classroom, in my district, and then have substantive support for those statements. She had a 9 out of a 15, some relationship to your own reality, but not in view of an issue or a thesis statement. So there was no real thread that followed the whole report. So you see, the content of the report is the most important thing. Following the procedures and processes in the Mackay text helps to guide their thinking as they write each one of these sections. Then, lastly, APA compliance. She had an 8 out of a 10. I just said, remember to use the APA template and running head. She didn't do that. She used TextEdit, and so it didn't follow the guidelines for APA. But you can see there that I didn't spend a lot of time talking about the APA. I spent most of my time talking about the content. And then the last section on writing quality, she's a good writer. She just didn't have the content or the critical thinking pieces that wove the paper together. So then, here's where then in the feedback comments, you can expand what you said in each one of those cells. So I said it really was evident that she misunderstood the purpose of the assignment. And then I referred her back to the rubric and told her, you'll see that the first section is where you state your thesis. By doing so, you set up the purpose for the review and analysis. Without that, the paper became just a research paper. And I read a document a couple of years ago that talked about how high school students prepare research papers. And basically what they do is they find everything they can about a particular topic that the teacher assigned, and they pretty much just bulldoze it all together in this big pile, and then they leave it there. Like, here's all the stuff I found out. And then they don't do anything else with it. That's not the purpose of this assignment. We want them to review the literature with a critical eye, and then to analyze it, but then to assimilate their findings to create their own position and viewpoint, and to indicate, this is what I know now. This is what still needs to be answered or found out in future research. And because I know what I know and I can support it with the evidence from the research, this is what I propose. That's where we want our students to be. This student pretty much bulldozed a pile of information together and didn't take it any further. And so that's why, as you read these reports, it's critical that we use the rubric to guide our grading, but also guides our instruction, so that we think, okay, this student really is just smushing things together. They're just making a pile. And that's not the intent of this assignment, nor will it help the students get to the student learning outcome. And we have to remember that there are other courses in the core that are all looking at having students be able to prepare this kind of a report. So we will do them a huge disservice if we ignore the content piece. So for the future, I suggested that she study the Mackay text, steps 1 and 2, then study that text to see how to discuss the author's arguments. It's in 4, 5, and 6, those steps. I directed her to the figure on page 146 and 147 of the Mackay text to help her structure the review and analysis, so that later she'll use those same skills when she's writing her lit review. Then study the rubric to understand what should be in each section. And then I want her to know that she has good writing skills. She just didn't understand how this assignment, these papers are much different than the research papers she used to do in the past. And so it's important that we give our students this kind of feedback based on the criteria in the rubric and our initial feedback in the rubric. Now you have three times that you're going to be building upon these comments for these students during the course, and then as you then lead them to the annotated bibliography, but more importantly the final project, you should then see how they have been building these skills because of the kind of feedback that you've given, and that you keep directing them back to see the Mackay text, see the Mackay text, this is how you do it. And that Mackay text really does work in concert with the Kuntz text and the other issues to help them dig deeper, help them organize their thoughts into topics, so that as they're reading all of these authors, oh, I see 3 main themes that are coming out here. And this is the first theme, and this is how the authors came together, and what I gathered from the research for the first theme. And this is the second theme that I discovered about this issue. And then they can discuss that. And you'll start seeing students build upon that throughout the 3 review and analysis reports. I hope that this video has helped you see, first of all, how it is that you'll go about your grading, how you'll access the rubric and then make the comments on there, and then also how why it's important to grade in that manner. Now, if you have chosen to write comments on the student's paper itself, that does not mean that you won't be writing the comments on the rubric as well. You would need to do both. But if you have written comments on the student's papers, you can save that paper with your comments and then drag it over here and drop it in the feedback files if you chose to do that. I don't always do that. I do it for students who are particularly struggling and for whom I think that they really need my comments there. So I hope that this has helped you see the importance of the rubric and the importance of using the rubric as you are grading and making your comments. So I invite you to study that rubric and establish for yourself, see the ties between the Mackay text and the assignments. So I wish you luck, and we'll be talking again in the future, I'm sure.